So this video is going to talk through the sources on Sulla. So that's Plutarch, Sulla 7 through 10 and then 31. The 2 denarius coins from Sulla, Appian 1.100 and then Plutarch Caesar 6. So we're going to start with Plutarch Sulla number 7. So this source is going to be talking through the events leading up to Sulla's march on Rome and then his dictatorship. So at the time in question, Sulla viewed the consulship as a trivial matter in comparison with things to come. His thoughts soared to the Mithridatic War. So Sulla at this point, he just wants to go off and fight in the Mithridatic War against King Mithridates, and why it's called the Mithridatic War, and he's willing to give up the consulship as a result of it. So this does show us, for our aims and objectives, that okay, yes, the consulship is important to Roman politicians, but so is military glory, because from the glory fighting against someone else, you will gain dignitas. So that's why he wants to go and beat him. But possessed by ambition and lust for glory, those never-aging passions, Marius set himself up as a rival to Sulla. So Marius, his rival, has the same idea. He wants this glory too, so he wants to go and fight Mithridates instead. However, Marius was now overweight, and in recent campaigns given up service on Adrian's account. Yet Marius had set his heart upon foreign wars beyond the seas. So there is this issue that he really, really wants this particular command. Now, you're going to notice here that I've not highlighted much in this particular source. There is a reason for this, I'll talk about in a second. So Sulla sets out for his camp on unfinished business. He's going off to Mithridates. Marius stays at home and nurtures the fatal feud, which did Rome more harm than all the wars had done. All her wars together had done. So there's going to be a fight between these two. There's going to be a civil war as a result of this rivalry. And it's not just over Mithridates, it's over lots of different issues. So this next section of Plutarch is basically talking through a whole load of omens that are seen in Rome at the time. Now, because Plutarch has got this religious background, he was a priest, he does really enjoy writing about different omens that appear, as sort of showing, well, clearly this war was going to happen because all these horrible things happened. So I've not highlighted them, but I'll talk you through the highlights. So we've got kind of like flames breaking out on the military standards. We've got a raven who eats their young, which is a bit gross. Some mice eat some gold. And then the same mouse was trapped and it gave birth to some baby mice and ate them. And then there's like a sound of a trumpet from a clear sky. It's all a load of absolute rubbish, but it does kind of point out this kind of issue with using Plutarch in any particular way, to be honest. And then he's going, this is all just about religion and divination. So to be completely honest, it is not relevant. And again, there's another omen down here that a sparrow comes in with a grasshopper and he eats half the grasshopper, and who cares about grasshoppers? But supposedly it's a big omen. Anyway, we're going to skip over that and get back to the point. So Marius now made an alliance with Sulpicius, who was a tribune of the people, so it shows the importance of friendships and alliances. And this particular guy here is full of consummate villainy, second to none, so he's really evil. He displays lots of wickedness, and he was selling off people, and he has lots of bodyguards. You can notice I've not again highlighted any of this because it's not particularly relevant. But either way, he's a bad guy, and that's why Plutarch doesn't like him. And this is a man now let loose upon the people by Marius. So he's going to be a bad guy, and he's awful. So after throwing everything into chaos through force and sword, he proposed certain vicious laws, particularly one offering Marius command of the Mithridatic War. So Marius is basically using this guy to get the command of the Mithridatic War because he wants the glory. And to prevent voting on these, consuls decreed suspension of public business. So the consuls are trying to stop this kind of power coup being launched by Marius, but then this guy attacks him with a mob. So we've got mob violence, which is obviously really bad because consuls are protected by law. And there's lots of death. People cut down large numbers in the forum. It's absolutely awful. Where are we? So I'm just reading all the way through. Oh, sorry. So he's just so Sulla is forced to come out and rescind the decree, suspending public business because he needs to get his command. So although then, because he did this, sorry, I'm trying to read what I've highlighted. This guy then doesn't take the consulship from Sulla, doesn't take that right away from him, but he transfers the expedition to Marius's command. So Sulla can no longer go out to deal with Mithridates at this particular point. Now, this is kind of like showing rivalries between key generals in the Roman Republic. One of the key things we have to look at is the reasons why the Republic collapsed. And one of these kind of key themes is the aims of politicians and also the relationships between them. So you've got Marius and Sulla, who had originally been working together. They have this massive falling out because Marius is basically jealous of Sulla's reputation. It comes to a bit of a head over this Mithridatic War command. Okay, so we're going to skip over these 2 coins and carry on with Plutarch Sulla. So basically, Sulla then decides that he needs to get this Mithridatic War command back again, understandably, because it was his to have. So what Sulla then does is he decides essentially to march on Rome to deal with Marius. So Sulla succeeded in making his escape and reaching the camp first. This is when he flees Rome, which was at the end of here. So he flees Rome, and then when his soldiers learn what happened, they stone the tribunes to death. So remember, tribunes under the curse of honour are protected by the gods. So the fact that they are killed is horrifically unconstitutional and obviously shows the importance of violence in the late Republic. So in return, Marius and his partisans in the city went about killing the friends of Sulla and plundering their property. So it's not quite a civil war at this particular point, but it's getting very close. There are factions going around Rome killing each other, which is obviously really, really bad. So people began to flee and change sides, with some making their way from camp to city, others from Rome to the camp. The Senate was not its own master, but was governed by the commands of Marius. So we have the idea of the failure of the Senate here. They're unable to rule. You've got these 2 generals and a couple of consuls running around deciding to do whatever they want to do, and they can't do anything else about it. And then when it learned that Sulla was marching against Rome, it sent 2 praetors to help order him to halt. These men addressed Sulla with too much boldness, whereupon the soldiers would have gladdened him to pieces, but contented themselves with breaking their fasces, stripping of the senatorial togas, insulting him in many ways, and sending them back to the city. So Sulla's going to take his army and march on the city. This is hugely illegal, but you can kind of understand where Sulla was coming from at this particular point. So praetors are sent to try and stop them. Their sort of fasces, which are these sort of wooden scrolls, rods, I guess, that kind of symbolise their power, are broken. So if you break them, it obviously symbolises that the power of these praetors is also broken, and they're stripped of their togas. So this is all very humiliating for these particular praetors. And so war's inevitable. So then you've got Marius and his partisans and busy themselves preparations for war. And then Sulla at 6 legions moves with his colleagues from Nola. So basically the war is about to occur between these 2 men. Sulla is aware that his army was eager to march at once against the city. So importance of the army here in maybe pushing their commanders forward. And then we have yet another omen, which, to be honest, we are going to skim over. So we're going to just skip that bit because it's not particularly important. So Sulla's on his way in. He's met by a delegation from the city who's begged him not to advance an immediate attack, since the Senate voted he should have all his rights. So the Senate's trying, you could argue, to try and solve the situation. Try and take the command off Marius. This is all about, to try and stop the war. So he decides to encamp there. Ordered his officers to measure out the ground as usual for the camp. And then they seize the gate. They march into the city, and Sulla was basically lying. So Sulla's hand suits going on, ordered shouts to set fire to the houses. So some of the people in the city were trying to attack the army of Sulla. So van Arman pelted them with stones and tiles. So Sulla, very, somewhat over the top, I guess, decides to set fire to the houses. And so that's what happens. And he leads it himself. And the archers use their fire bolts to shoot him on the roofs. You could have this as one of the effects of conflict within this period. So we have the idea that there'll be obviously economic damage caused by setting fire to the houses, because you have to rebuild them. So that's obviously not good. And the plebs are obviously being attacked quite horrifically at this particular point. And basically, Plutarch is making the point here that he did this out of anger. He wasn't really thinking. and that's why he acted the way he did. I mean, it made no distinction between the guilty and the innocent. So he's just killing people left, right, and centre. He doesn't really particularly care. So Marius was hiding in a temple, and then he realises that he's got no chance. So he then sort of flees the city. So Sulla now calls together the Senate and passes a death sentence on Marius and a few others, including also this guy who's been an absolute pain in the backside. So this guy's killed, fine. He's thrown off a rock, which is not very nice. Sets a price for the head of Marius. Sorry, I'm skimming it, but there's lots of things in here that you don't have to really worry about too much. And then, what we do have is Sulla becoming quite unpopular. So he won the secret dislike of the Senate, but the people's hatred and indignation was made clear by their actions. So the Senate doesn't like him, people don't like him, no one likes Sulla. I'm sure his wife did, but no one else seems to. And to show their dislike, they basically elect people who he didn't want to be elected. But obviously, to try and show he's being constitutional, he pretends to be pleased at this, saying that the people, in sowing as they please, enjoy the freedom that was due to him. So I've set you free. You can vote whoever you like, while probably swearing under his breath. In order to appease the hatred of the masses, allowed Cinna, a political opponent, to be elected consul. Okay, fine. So once all that is dealt with, Sulla then decides to leave Rome again, and he goes out to fight against Mithridates, which is where we then now have a look at these two particular coins. So if we start with the denarius of 84 to 83, so this one here, what it's showing is Sulla's success over Mithridates in Greece. So we have a jug, and we have like a crooked wand, which has a proper name which I can't pronounce. So these are the symbols of the officer of an augur, so this is a type of priest. So what seems to be happening is he's trying to solemnize his claim to the victories. He's trying to make them kind of almost like religious. And then we have this second coin here of 82. So again, this is proclaiming victory done by Sulla before he retakes Rome. And what we've got here is showing sort of like a carriage for an imperator of a celebration. So what we do have here is an element of Sulla using propaganda. So he's showing himself to be militarily successful. He's trying to sort of show that the gods are on his side with this particular coin, and that he's this fantastic commander or imperator. This is also to try and help solidify any support that he has in Rome. Not that he particularly has much support in Rome, because, remember, he burned it all down. However, at this point, after Mithridates, he comes back into Rome, scroll all the way back down here, and he proclaims himself dictator. And he's doing this basically to secure his own position. And then we have a particularly brilliant section of Plutarch and a bit of Appian. So the first sentence is going to be a quote you will probably use in every essay you ever write using Sulla. So Sulla now busied himself with slaughter and filled the city with more murders than anybody could count. So this is horrific. He's going around killing lots of people, but the methods he used is a little bit different. Not like the physical method of killing someone, but the way he sort of organised it. So people are also really unhappy about all of this going on. So in the Senate, here we go, someone decides to stand up and sort of question all of this. We do not ask you, he said, to free from punishment those who decide to kill, but to free from suspense those who you wish to decided to save. So, just kind of tell us who you're planning to kill. Sulla says, yeah, I'll tell you. However, what actually ends up happening is Sulla does this. So Sulla at once prescribed 80 men without communicating with any magistrate. So prescriptions, remember, is that list. We don't necessarily remember, you may not have done this in lesson, sorry. Is a list of names of people who are who are to be killed. So they're sort of stripped of their citizenship, and it becomes the legal obligation of any person in Rome to kill this particular person. So he prescribes 80 people without telling anybody. So he's complete dictatorship here. He is running everything himself. A day later, he prescribes another 220. Then on the next day, another 220. So he is literally killing hundreds of people, all from a list. He also prescribed anyone who sheltered or saved a prescribed person, making death the punishment for such a kindness. So you can't even go and hide with someone. You're going to be killed. You'll kill anybody who helped anybody else. And he even says in a speech, we go back a bit, he said, prescribing those who came to mind, those who now escaped his memory who prescribe at a later date. So these lists are not the end of it. There's going to be other people, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. So everybody is sort of covered. Sulla offers anyone who killed a prescribed person 2 talents as a reward. So financially, it paid to kill these people. Even if it's a slave or whoever, it doesn't matter. He is going to you get that money for killing somebody. So funnily enough, the plebs, not just the plebs, but the plebs were quite willing to do this because it gives them a decent amount of money. So we can use that as an evidence to show how you gain support of the people, sort of essentially through bribery, but also through death. So not only does he kill these people, he then takes away the civil rights from the sons and grandsons of those being prescribed and confiscates all their property. So they're basically losing their citizenship rights, which is going to be a huge issue later on. It basically creates a generation of people who have no ability to become a politician or have a law career or do anything. They're stripped of everything, and they're going to have massive issues. This is going to be an issue in about 20 years in the late Republic. So prescriptions are made in Rome, but every city in Italy. There's no way you can hide. You've got husbands butchered and embracing of their wives, sons in the arms of their mothers. I mean, it is horrific. I quite like Sulla, but I can't gloss over the fact that this is a particularly nasty period in the late Republic. In fact, even Plutarch says some of those are butchered for the sake of their property. There's also stories of people who would murder people and add the names to the list, and they'd still get the money. So this is how horrific it has become. And then we have a bit of Appian, which again talks through kind of the power of Sulla at this particular point. So in a show of observance, traditional constitution, Sulla permitted people to vote for consul. So there are elections. The whole point of Sulla becoming dictator was to restore the constitution and improve it. However, as Appian points out, that he as dictator was like a king. So he controls everything. So this idea that he's reforming the constitution, making it stronger, is probably not entirely true. So he passes some laws. So he prohibited anyone from holding the praetorship before being quaestor, or holding the consulship before being praetor, or for holding the same office again before the 10 years had elapsed. So basically he's reinforcing the cursus honorum. He's trying to prevent people from skipping up ahead and getting too powerful too quickly. He virtually abolished the tribunate of the people, so tribunes lose their power. So once you've been a tribune, you can't hold any other office. So unsurprisingly, people avoided the office, because why would you bother doing it? This reform doesn't stay in place that long, but it's still a really important thing. Remember, tribunes are there to protect people. So the fact that he's sort of removing the power of the people, protecting the people, is obviously really bad for the people. Not too many peoples in there, but you know what I'm trying to say. Other reforms he's made. So he enlarges the Senate membership by about 300, from equestrian families. He also creates more citizens, about 10,000 ex-slaves, and calls them after his name, so he can have 10,000 men to carry out his orders. So what he is essentially doing, if I highlight that bit, is he's creating his own support. So he's killing off his opposition in order to protect himself, and then he's creating sort of this core group of people who's going to support him no matter what. And then with the same objective in view, so in other words, to keep support, he allotted to the 23 legions who fought for him a large quantity of land belonging to the town. So he takes this land, seizes this land off towns in Italy, and gives it to his ex-soldiers in order for them to keep supporting him. So obviously this is absolutely awful. Sulla's dictatorship is a really, really unpleasant sort of time for the Roman Republic. So this Plutarch Caesar section, which is the last source in this video, is talking about the time that comes after. So it's kind of like the end result, and it's talking about the issue with factions more than anything else. So we've got two parties in Rome, that one of Sulla, which in his time had been really powerful, and then you got the other one of Marius. So Sulla is an optimate, and Marius was a populare. So we've got anything we're going to highlight, which isn't a huge amount here, is to do with these two factions. And what we basically have is the faction of Marius, so the populares, is in a very low state, numbers are scattered, and they're too afraid to raise their heads. Because obviously what Sulla has done during his dictatorship is essentially kill off his opposition, which would have been Marius and his supporters, so the populares. So the faction of the populares is weak. However, it's this party which Caesar wishes to revive and make his own. So Caesar is a popularis, and during his aedileship, he essentially, if we talk you through the main points, he has images of Marius made with figures of victory, and he kind of deposits them all around the city, and they look really pretty, and it's all really nice, and everybody knew it was Caesar who did it. Everybody comes together to see the site, and some people see it as a sign that Caesar was aiming at securing supreme power in the state for himself. Now, the problem with Plutarch, and there are many problems with Plutarch, but one of the problems with Plutarch is he really does not like Caesar at all. And nor does Suetonius, which is another source you will read in future times. But he really doesn't like Caesar, and he kind of has this idea that Caesar always wanted to be like a king. Now, personally, I disagree with that. I'm not saying that Caesar didn't get too much power and it went to his head, but I would suggest that Caesar was not out to be a king from the very beginning of his career. So what Plutarch is doing here is he's sort of saying, well, the Caesar's behaviour here shows he always wanted to be supreme ruler. I'm not sure that's what it means. I think he's probably trying to promote Marius and like his faction, but anyway. And after he previously softened up people's feelings, so what we have here is evidence to show that the plebs, the people, are really important to politicians. So he's doing all of this behaviour to kind of like create the support for the populares again. And he does sort of lavish personal displays when he was aedile, which had worked. So that's fine, and it worked in the end because Marius and Sparta took to heart and encouraged each other. So you have the idea of this growth of the populares faction again, which is, you would probably suggest is a good thing. It does backfire a little bit. So we have Catullus, who's really, really respected, and he attacks Caesar in a speech as a result of it. So you have this kind of factional rivalry between the Optimates of Sulla and his supporters, and then the populares of Marius and his supporters. But it does show this problem that Sulla's dictatorship had brought, in terms of the Optimates have been really, 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 really powerful, and the populares have been struggling as a result of all the different proscriptions and assassinations during Sulla's dictatorship.